Everyone for joining us. Just like to start by acknowledging that the land that I'm presenting from today is Aboriginal land and acknowledge the traditional custodians of that land, and also pay my respects to elders past and present. So I'd love for everyone to start off just by popping into the chat and just entering in where you're joining from. Love to hear that. And I'd also love to hear what if you've been nominated, to find out what category you've been nominated into as well. So just pop that into the chat as we get started, and we'll get underway. The other thing I wanted to preface with is just to say thank you to everybody for joining. That means that you're an amazing community champion, you're a local legend, you're someone in a business or an organization who's doing something pretty cool and pretty amazing. And I think that is certainly worth celebrating. That's what these awards are all about. It's about celebrating people who are doing something positive in their field, and we think that you deserve to have a bit of a spotlight shown on you, and that might be uncomfortable for some. I was chatting with Tim just before about how it can be uncomfortable to talk about yourself, but we know that you're not big noters. We know that you're not here to say, hey, I'm the best, I deserve this celebration. It's actually more than that. It's about inspiring others to get involved as well, inspiring others to do their best, and it's about showing that the people who are the backbones of their communities, their clubs, their organizations, are doing it, a lot of the time volunteering or putting in big efforts, and we think that is certainly worthy of celebration. So that's what these awards are all about. So thanks everyone for chucking those things into the chat. Emily, are you on, by the way? If Emily's on, maybe you can message me, but we'll forward. So we'll get stuck into the presentation. We're obviously nearing the end of the nomination period for the Community Achievement Awards. So now is a great time to look at submitting your nomination. It's a great time to think about how you can make the nomination the best it can be, because whilst we want to celebrate you, we really do need some of your input into the nomination so that we can then do our part in sharing your story and posting about how amazing you are and writing up our bios on you and things like that. So we'll start off with some of the topics we'll cover in this webinar. And I think the first one, it's start at the start. Why is it worth taking the time to submit? Because as I said, that deadline is coming up pretty soon. And it's very easy to let the excuses roll in of, I'm too busy, I've got too much on. I'm a dad myself, so I know what it's like when you're working. You're trying to coach the basketball team, pick them up from school, all this stuff that's going on. It's easy to think, all right, well, I won't bother with the nomination this time. But I'll give you some tips, some reasons why I do think it's worth taking that time. We'll go over some practical tips from the awards team. So all of us at Awards Australia who run the Community Achievement Awards, we've been doing it for years now, and we've got a lot of experience on what works well, and also just like some boring tips that actually can make a big difference for your process in submitting. We'll go over the one that's probably the most exciting, the one that's got the best info here. What does a judge look for? Because at the end of the day, we can give you all the tips, but we need to know what the judge is looking for in the nomination. That gives you the best chance to progress through the judging process. So what we've done is asked a bunch of the different judges what they look for, what stands out to them, and we've kind of collated those responses, and I'll give you a summary of that. At the end, we'll have a Q&A session, so if anyone does have any questions, chime in. And if you prefer, we can, at the end, maybe we can have a moment to turn the recording off and go over any specific questions about your specific nomination, if you like. So we're going to talk about why it's worth taking the time to submit. I kind of hinted about it before, but really the main one is so that we can share your story. Without you submitting your nomination, we can't do that. So we do it through a bunch of different ways. The first one is when you do submit your nomination, you'll be invited to complete a form, which is like, takes a minute maybe, just giving your permission for us to share about you on our social media channels. So we call them our nominee snapshots, and as people submit, we love to share stories about them. It's a great way to kind of start spreading that, good news, kind of celebrating you before we get to the judging process. So that's a really cool one, and we hope a lot of you will do that so that we can celebrate you in that way. The other one is we do media releases out to local papers. So we've got a bunch of media partners, but also other papers around the state. We send out media release to them to let them know that, hey, you've been nominated, and this is a great chance to feature a local story in the newspaper. So another one is it's an amazing reflection opportunity. We hear that a lot from people in our feedback forms after the awards, and at the gala dinner we get to go and chat to people and hear their story in person. And people say that they, when they went back and thought about some of the things they've done, some of the challenges that they've faced and they've overcome, that really was an amazing chance to look back and reflect and either, be really proud of some growth or acknowledge those hardships that have happened. And it's a chance to celebrate your wins. I don't think we do that enough. Again, it's not about big noting ourselves. In Australia, we have a real tall poppy syndrome. I think we're all aware of that. But it's actually really good to celebrate your wins, to be proud of your achievements. And even if you're on your journey, you're still going on your journey, we celebrate our wins along the way. It's also, submitting your nomination means you progress through the program. Gives you a chance then to have some networking opportunities. So at the awards night, for example, anyone who's nominated, regardless of whether you're a nominee or you make it through to become a semi-finalist or to the final round to become a finalist, anyone can still come to that awards night, anyone who's nominated, and we'll present you up on stage. And it's a great chance to hear other people's stories, go up and meet them, introduce yourself, meet the judges and the sponsor partners and community and corporate leaders who are there at the event. So that's a really good one. And a lot of people, that coming to the gala dinner and connecting with people like-minded and even ones who are, they would never have met otherwise, is a pretty cool experience. And there are growth opportunities available as well, whether that's through networking, whether it's through the media opportunities that will pop up, and also through the Career College, one of our our awards partners who provide mentoring programs and kind of like group mindset training and things like that, which is really cool. So everyone gets access to that if you submit. And we've also partnered with Tasmanian leaders this year, and that has some exciting things to announce down the track. I can't announce it just yet. So that leads me really to the last point. You've got to be in it to win it. If you don't submit, you can't win, and you can't have a chance of any of that stuff I've just talked about. So plain and simple, if you don't submit, then we kind of can't move forward with what we do with these awards. And I encourage people to, if they're running out of time, to reach out to us, whether it's asking for help, whether it's, we may be able to offer the odd extension here. I wouldn't rely on that though, because our judging timeline is fixed. We can't move that back. So sometimes an extension just isn't possible, but it's better to submit something that's perhaps not as extensive as you were hoping, because sometimes a short and concise nomination can be just as good as one that's really, really long, if that makes sense. You don't have to necessarily write a thesis to submit a nomination. And that kind of does segue a little bit into some practical tips, so we'll get there in a second. But the awards team, so we're using the awards platform day in, day out. We're seeing nominations day in, day out. So these are a bit more practical, not so exciting. And the first one here is just, we suggest using Google Chrome as the browser. So a lot of people might use Edge, and it's fine, totally fine. Microsoft Edge, there's other browsers, of course, but the website is optimized for Google Chrome. So if you have the choice, if it's easy for you, you feel technologically savvy enough to switch over, then we have found the best results in Google Chrome. And one little example is, the text boxes. If you're familiar with the nomination form, they can look quite small when you're first typing them in. But in Chrome, you can just click and drag the text box to expand it as big as you like. And all of a sudden, it's not little. So that's just one example. This one is just so common, so we have to mention it, is, in the nominee name field. So if you're an individual, it'll ask you for your first name and your surname. If you're nominating as an organization, you select group or organization, then there's a chance to put in the organization name. In those fields, just make sure you're listing them how you want to be referred to, because we use that, I've written here in the presentation, we list it on the certificate. We also then follow that through to list it on our awards night intros, on our slides that go on the AV screens at the gala dinner, how we refer to you on social media, all of that stuff. So, if you're someone who has a really specific way that you like your name to be referred to, make sure it's written down in that way. if you've got a nickname and that's what you're used to being called, pop your nickname in. That's totally fine. We want to present you in a positive light, so, and how you want to be presented. And it's also really important for organizations. If you have a specific name, don't put the abbreviation in, because then that's just how it's going to get referenced. So I'm talking about, again, specifically in the name fields at the top of the nomination. Once you're writing it into the text boxes and the questions, of course, then you can be a bit more informal and list an abbreviation and things like that. This one here is just a common question we get a lot. Like, people ask us, if I'm filling out the form, should I write in the first person or the third person? That's a really common one. And the answer is there's no correct answer. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. So the person I was speaking to at the start saying, I'm not sure about writing about myself, it feels uncomfortable, you might feel more comfortable to refer to yourself in the third person in that way, and that's okay. It's just whatever you find comfortable writing in. The only thing I would say is just don't chop and change. Don't start writing, I was working in the organization for 20 years, and then the next sentence, John was working, over a long period. That will just be confusing the judges. So just keep it consistent. And this is probably my favorite tip that I love to give. Inject your personality. If you're like a bit of a funny guy, a funny lady, let that be how you write your answers as well. If you're really formal, write in that formal way, that's fine. But whatever you can do to show the judges, I suppose, that what you're like, let that come out into your nomination. You don't have to be like super, super serious. And the reason I say that is because, judges, if they're reading heaps and heaps of applications, and all of a sudden your one sounds like you're actually having a conversation with them, that's going to leap off the screen to them, and they're really going to notice that, and it will stand out. So that's kind of why I give that one kind of tip. And also because I find if people just write how they're used to it and how they feel comfortable, it's a lot easier to write. This last one is, again, another practical tip, is that you can enter 2 categories. We do get a lot of people asking us, which category do you think is best for me? And we're always happy to take that time and talk with people and find the best category. But sometimes the answer is that you're kind of in between a category. So just go into 2, and that will really help you to kind of not accidentally miss the wrong category. And also it doubles your chances. So that's pretty handy. And you can use a lot of the same information across 2 categories, because each award category is judged independently. So I think that's important for people to know. It's not like they'll look at your nomination across 2 categories and just disregard one. That's not how it works. So sometimes you can use some of the same information and then just tweak it to suit the question, the category. We'll move on now to what are the judges looking for. So some of these are practical, some of these are not, but I guess what I was saying in that last one is, about 2 categories and tweaking your answers. I'm going to jump ahead here because it's really directly linked to this middle point of refer to the category description. So I guess the example I use is if you're applying for a job, there's a really set list of criteria that they're looking for that position. And so, of course, you're going to reference that in your application, your cover letter. In the same way, in these awards, in any award, when there's a specific award category, you want to look at that description, look at the questions they're asking, and that's basically giving you the clues of what they're looking for in that award category. So you can refer back. So if the award category, I'm going to use the example of the Care Super, Caring for Community Award. Care is in the name of the organisation, care is in the name of the award category, and the description is talking about, caring and how you're showing that care. So you want to be referring to that. It's obviously a key word, and so bringing that into your answers, and obviously you can use that in other categories as well. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're not sure exactly how to answer a question, just go back and reread that description. It'll usually, like a little light bulb will pop and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense now, I get it. So I definitely encourage people just to make sure that they've read that category description, they're really comfortable with it, you suit that category, and then refer back in your answers. Again, it'll really stand out for the judges because they'll say, oh yeah, they're really a good fit for this category. Right, back to the top now, starting where we should have started. So we always suggest that you provide at least one referee in your nomination. So in the nomination form, when you're entering your contact details, there's a space up there for 2 referees. And it's always worth adding at least one. What that shows at the base level is that there's someone else who's willing to vouch for you in that nomination. So that's at its simplest terms, but also to take that to the next level, add your referee and always ask the referee, just double check that they're, or at least let them know that you're doing so. And if you're feeling up to it, you can take that tip to the next level and ask them to provide a really short testimonial or reference on their experience with you. That's where the referee really becomes a super, bonus to your nomination. Again, it's extra because the judges are looking firstly and foremost at the written answers to each question, but that referee shows, hey, you got someone here vouching for you. They're saying, yep, what they're saying is true, and I work with them and I back them. And that written reference is just doing that, 10 times as well. So that's a really good tip, and we've heard the feedback from the judges that really helps them sometimes if they're looking at, or that I'm not sure if this nomination is going to be in the final stage or not. That can sometimes be the thing that puts them apart and gets them in. And of course, we have the attachments section down the bottom, and that's an easy way to upload your referee testimonial or letter of support, call it what you like. It doesn't have to be long, and that makes it easy for the referee too. Paragraph, 2 paragraphs is plenty. So yeah, speaking of the attachments, there is that section you can add up to 10 supporting documents to your nomination. Now there are a few little things around that, like file size. I think it's 3 or 5 megabytes, so you can't be putting in a huge file. You can't add a video, for example. It's just too big and it's going to crash our server potentially. So, if you do have videos, we get that question a lot, we suggest uploading them to a file share site, Dropbox or Google Drive or things like that, as long as it's an open link. It's not a secure link. As long as it's something that is easily accessible, you can add that to your written answers if it's really, really relevant. So that's a way to put a video in. But what we're going to use the attachments is evidence to back up what you've written, remembering that the written answers are the main thing that judges are looking at. So we use it as evidence. And I guess an example of that is, if you spoke at a community event in front of 200 people, let's pop in a photo of you up there on the stage speaking to 200 people, because that's a really powerful visual way to show, hey, I actually did what I talked about. So, a lot of people will just do 10 photos of them, looking lovely. And that's really nice to show, who they are. But what is that telling us? Is it telling us a story? So we use it as evidence instead of just, here's 10 photos of me, 10 headshots. That's not really showing the judges anything. So I hope that makes sense. Obviously, that's a very generic example about speaking at a community event. It's just one that I feel people can visualize in their heads, whatever it is for you. A photo that shows what you've done. It doesn't have to be a photo. It could be a document. It could be a image from the newspaper that you were featured in. It could be you were mentioned in the annual report of your charity as doing an outstanding job, and you grab that page from the report and upload it. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, but it's hard to give too many examples because every case is very different and specific. All right, so we covered refer to the category description. We can skip over that one. So this one is probably the most generic thing that we, in terms of advice from the judges. But this one was just given to us as feedback by so many different judges, and in slightly different ways. So we kind of summarized it in this way: showcase your purpose and impact. It's a very fancy thing to say. What does it mean exactly? So I suppose if you're talking about your nomination and you're writing a lot of stuff, it's a way that you can kind of think back and look at what you're writing and remind yourself, I've written 200 words here. Have I described what my purpose of my role is and what I'm trying to achieve? And the impact of what did I achieve? So I think sometimes we forget to explain the why behind what we do. You know, if you're a community advocate and you're really passionate about a certain issue, it's great to write about that, but remember to tell why you started. What was the reason for becoming a community advocate in that field? That's a really important and powerful part of the overall picture. But then also there's the follow through on the other end. It's what was the impact of your actions? So that's what we're going to is to take a nomination from being, you know, pretty good to really great, is explaining the why, what was your purpose, why did you start doing it, and why are you continuing doing it, and what have you achieved, what's the impact been, and you know, even go down to like, and who was it impacting. So that's where, again, you can just take it from really good nomination to a really great. This last one is to be specific where you can, and that can be as simple as the acronym thing I mentioned before. So if you haven't explained what the acronym is, be really specific to explain what that is. If you are a slightly more technical person, your nomination has technical elements, you might have to take the chance to explain some of those technical things you're talking about, because that might be really impressive in your niche field. But if one of the judges isn't aware of that, then it's not going to resonate with them. And I suppose I'll take that opportunity to describe to people who the judges are. For each award category, there are experts in that field, so you can rest assured they'll get that technical side. There's also the sponsor representative. So for that particular category, they'll be a part of the judging panel. And then we have our executive panel, which is made up of different corporate and community leaders from, you know, we try and get people from all different walks of life and different fields and different organizations. And so that's to give a really well-rounded panel and to have a really transparent and diverse panel. So of course, some of those people aren't going to be experts in the field that you are. So we just have to keep that in mind, and we have to be specific to explain things so that they're understanding it. And even though our judges are incredibly, you know, amazing, intelligent, executive level people, we have to sometimes remember that when we're explaining things to people who aren't in our field, we have to almost, you know, dumb it down, I suppose is a crude way to say it, just to explain everything along. So I always suggest to be as specific as possible rather than be generic in your description. Another example of that is, you know, a common one we get is someone will be nominated and they're not sure what to write. So they say, oh, you know, I volunteer in my community. And kind of that's the sentence they give us. And we can't really do anything with that, because whilst that's great, we need to know, okay, well, what community is that in? You know, how many hours are you volunteering? What kind of volunteering role are you taking? And again, that kind of comes back to be specific and then showcase their purpose and impact. Why did you start volunteering? Who have you helped? So that's probably the end of that section. It's time for some questions anyway, I do believe. So hopefully some of that has made sense and we've got some time for questions. And, you know, I'll pop the categories here as well, just to remind people on that note of you can be in 2 categories. It's just a chance to have a look at what categories we have available. Is anyone feel like they have a question? You can take yourself off mute if you like. While we're waiting to see.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. A question, if I could.
Yeah, please.
I'm nominated for the Intergenerational Community Award, and I've been involved with awards because I'm retired now, but I've been involved with awards through various organisations over the years, and this Intergenerational Community Award is something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And again, you mentioned it at the start of your discussion, you know, people don't like to talk about themselves. Well, I'm that person.
Yeah.
So what advice can you give?
Yeah, so I would remember that, you know, and this is actually what, you know, it's hard to choose favorites, isn't it? But I love this category because I've seen my kids who are, you know, around that 9 and 7-year-old mark have the experience of hearing from and learning from, you know, older people than them, so but not their grandparents, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And so I've noticed that they take a lot out of that. They actually they see the wisdom, I suppose, in some ways, and those conversations are really powerful. And in the school, you know, they've gone to an aged care facility and those interactions have stayed with them. So I would say remembering that whilst we're asking you to talk about your work that you've done and some of the achievements you've had, I suppose, and that can be uncomfortable to talk about. Remembering that these awards is about sharing these positive stories. It's about inspiring other people too to get involved and to share their wisdom with the younger generations. And so what you're doing by, taking that leap of acknowledging it's kind of a little uncomfortable, and I don't want to big note myself, but this is a really supportive community, I feel, and we're going to be hoping to share your story a bit that could inspire other people, that could encourage others to get involved, to volunteer, and to, to share their knowledge with the younger generation. So that's really what it's about. It's about the message at the end of the day that we're trying to share. And so I hope that helps you to feel comfortable that you'll be actually making a difference through sharing some of your story. And I'd really encourage you to, even if you decide not to submit at the end of the day, that's your choice, to write out the nomination and see if what I said about having a reflecting opportunity is true. And I think that way you can write it out, have that moment of reflection, and then you can decide, yep, I'm comfortable to submit. And if you don't, that's your choice, of course.
Thanks, Josh.
No worries. Hope that's helpful, Tony. And if you have more specific questions, feel free to reach out afterwards. If you've got our email addresses, it's CAA at awardaustralia.com, and it'll either be me or one of our team, and we can get more, I suppose, specific about answering specific questions if you like.
Great.
Isa, do you have a question?
Thank you so much for that. That was really useful. My question is about the forms of evidence that you would like us to upload to support our application. I'm very aware that some of the people that we work with are very time poor, and that they might have already contributed like a statement to support a variety of initiatives that we're involved with.
Yeah.
So in light of not, of not creating support statement fatigue, I guess, from some of them, is it okay for us to upload documents that we might have received in the past, let's say 2 years, to support a variety of things that we've been doing? I've been nominated, to my surprise, by the way, so I'm still wondering how I'm going to do it. I'm nominated for the Community Safety Award.
Lovely. Well, yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it is a balance of what have I got time for? And obviously a purpose-written letter of support is going to be the best. But that doesn't mean you should not upload something you already have, because it's a really good upload. So I'd say it's kind of a scale of, what you've described sounds like a good upload, a good supporting evidence. So I would still go ahead and do that. And in the acknowledgement of the time that you have available, then I think that's a good way to do it. So, and it's certainly better than not having it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go because I'm due in the classroom in 1 minute.
No worries. We've got to wrap up very shortly anyway, as well, because we've got other things to get on our plate too. We've got time for one more question, I'd say, if anyone wants to jump in. No, that's fine. Like I said, and I said to Tony, you can email us, caa@awardsaustralia.com. I wish I remembered our phone number off the top of my head. I can't, I'm sorry, but if you go to our website, awardsaustralia.com, there is a contact page there. You're welcome to call us as well. And ask any other questions, whether they're specific or, you didn't want to ask in front of everyone, which I understand, then go ahead. We're here to help you. Our role is to help you put as much of your story as possible into the nomination to represent you as best you can, because we want to share your story and celebrate community champions. So all the best with nominating. Got a bit over a week to go, which is plenty of time. If you sit down and just kind of get it done, you'll be sweet. And yeah, we just want to wish you all the best. And again, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here. So all the best, guys. Look forward to seeing you at the gala dinner, hopefully too.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.
Thank you.